welcome to this other edition of Super Leader Saturdays based on my book, Lead Like a Superhero. Today, well, as you guessed it, you've probably seen the upper part of the shirt, we'll be talking about none other than Spider-Man. So, in talking about Spider-Man, we're going to talk about servant leadership. We're going to talk about his motto, with great power, with great power comes great responsibility. So, today, I'm pretty excited because I always grew up loving Spider-Man, first of all, but also my mom, when she saw the first Tobey Maguire movie, the first Spider-Man that came out, when she looked at him, she said, "Oh, he makes me think of you." But she wasn't talking about Spider-Man, she was talking about Peter Parker. Yeah, I was kind of a bit of a nerd and a geek growing up. That's what made me love superheroes, because what do superheroes do? They make us feel empowered. So that's why I loved reading comic books growing up. First of all, I'd like to talk to you guys about... before I get started, it's important. If you guys are enjoying this group, if you guys are enjoying the content that I'm giving every week, that's building up to the launch, which is in 10 days. The book launch is in 10 days. And in 10 days, the book will be available all throughout North America, Canada, US, and in the United Kingdom, in most digital book platforms online, and in stores, and available online to be shipped right to your door. So whether it's on Amazon or any other Barnes & Nobles or any other bookstore that you prefer to deal with online, Libris, I don't know, there's so many, Books A Million. The book will be made available in 10 days. But in the meantime, if you're getting great content, if you're enjoying this content every week, share it with your friends. I mean, I personally like learning about leadership through superheroes, and I know I'm not the only one. I know there's a lot of dudes out there especially who like that, but there's a lot of dudettes who also enjoy it quite a bit. So don't be shy, share, because it's fun. So let's talk first about the origins of Spider-Man. Spider-Man came out in the 1960s. I think I mentioned it in the book. I don't think I mentioned it in the book. I mentioned it in the book. It's in 1967. And how he got created was, well, Stan Lee said, I needed to create something because I wanted to not be out of a job. So back in the day, comic book creators, comic book writers, they were not as glorified as they are today. Today, they're like demigods. I mean, when you just say the word Stan Lee, everybody's like, oh, Stan Lee, he's such an amazing creator, and then everybody loves Stan Lee, right? But back in the day, he was just a dude trying to hold on to his job, and he had to come up with something original, something different. And he got to thinking, and he was thinking, says, what if I created a superhero who has problems? Which is not something we were familiar with at the time, because superheroes were obviously, because of their powers, right? They stood above mere mortals, and they were, we didn't see them as people who could have cash problems or women problems, or because of their phenomenal powers, we thought they were like above the rest of us, and they they just were above that. And Stanley was like, hey, what if I created one that has problems? Wouldn't that make him more appealing to maybe the people at large, people who are dealing with problems, who don't have superpowers? Which was a super intelligent marketing pitch, because indeed Spider-Man, when he came out, was unlike anything they'd ever seen. He was a dude who was a teenager, who was a nerd, who was awkward with girls, who was all into books. He was not the jock. He was bad in athletics, anything gym, anything athletic, he wasn't good at. So obviously he wasn't the popular kid in school. And when he got bit by the radioactive spider, that's when he got his powers. And then everything changed for him. And obviously, since he had a lot of problems prior to the spider's bite, he was like, you know what? Now I have these phenomenal powers. Maybe I can stop living like a wimp. Maybe I can improve my life, use those powers to get a better life, to get the girl, to get the money, to get the good things. And let's be honest. I mean, in the book, I mentioned in the chapter on Superman how if I had been given powers that like Superman's powers, I would have probably chosen to become an NHL goalie. I mean, think about it. You're wearing a mask. You keep your identity secret to some degree. I'm just joking. But then you can like just let one goal pass maybe every 2 games so they don't suspect you're not human, right? Because Superman is Kryptonian. And I was saying like how you could rewrite the record books as an NHL goalie, or that was my fantasy. It could be a football player, a basketball player, anything. I mean, Superman could have done it all, right? And I was basically saying, look, we're all human, and we would all probably want to use those powers to some degree, for some selfish reasons, right? And that's what I like about Spider-Man, is that when he first got his powers, he wanted to do just that. He wanted to go into wrestling. He was wearing that mask, so nobody would recognize him. And he enrolled in wrestling, and he made his first big night beating a wrestler, and then he had the big money given to him. And he became kind of smug. And there was a thief who came in the office of the guy who kind of, in the movie we see Tobey Maguire is getting, basically got screwed with the amount of money he was given. And then the thief grabs the money bag and starts running. And the owner, the manager goes like, stop him, stop him. And Spider-Man just says, no way, I'm not doing that. That's not what I came here for. And he just lets the dude pass by. And it was in the movie we see it more as a vengeance kind of thing, because he got stolen from the guy didn't get the same amount of money he was promised. But in the comics, it was more like, hey, I'm too smug, I'm too good for this, I'm Spider-Man, and I'm not going to bother with that. You know, I'm above that now. I've got powers now, so I don't need to deal with your petty problems. And that same thief, we know the story, most of us anyway, when he was let free, let go by Spider-Man eventually. I think, I don't remember in the comics how long it took, but he eventually killed Uncle Ben, who he shot him, and Uncle Ben died as a result. So that obviously crushed Peter Parker. And let's not forget, Peter Parker he wasn't raised by his parents, he was raised by his uncle Ben and Aunt May. And that already was an orphan. He didn't have his parents, and these were Uncle Ben and Aunt May, the best role models a kid could wish for. Virtuous, hardworking, industrious, and wise people, full of good counsel and loving. And he was raised by them. So for him to lose his Uncle Ben in such a way really crushed him. And then he had a huge, huge, huge change of heart and huge turning point, and he realized that what his Uncle Ben had said to him earlier, prior to all of this, is that with great power comes great responsibility. And I love that motto. I love that phrase. It resonates. It has resonated with so many people. When it was first coined, when it first came out in the movie, and I think it was 2002, it had a huge, huge, huge impact on young or old. I mean, we still say it. We still hear it a lot. It's become part of our pop culture. With great power comes great responsibility. And it's the same thing with leadership. If you're given a position, if you're given a title, if you have people who are looking up to you, you have a certain influence, you have some power there. Well, you need to be ultra responsible. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. It's about servant leadership, to using your gift, using your talent, using your abilities to serve other people, which is a lesson that Peter Parker learned the hard way, okay? So after that event, after his Uncle Ben died, Peter Parker turned to serving the people. He became a servant of the people. He started using his spider powers to help people, to save people, to stop crime, to better the nightlife or the day life of New York City, his hometown. So I think all superheroes, when you look at all the superheroes that I talk about in the book, they are all self-sacrificial in one way or another. That's part of being a superhero. You are a self-sacrificing leader. But I think no other superhero is as self-sacrificing as Spider-Man. And maybe many of you might not see it right away, but when I'm done with this, you're going to get it. You're going to see, yeah, this guy he goes above and beyond, and here's why. I mean, Superman is probably the image we have of the superhero is very self-sacrificial. But when you think about his level of powers, unless he's facing something that could kill him, which is very rare because he's so powerful, he is self-sacrificial to a degree because he can accomplish so much. But Spider-Man has a high power level without being all powerful. I mean, he's stronger than Batman, yes, because Batman has no powers. But he does get hurt. He does get bruises, and he can get quite injured in his role and in his duty that he self-imposed upon himself. So here's what his commitment to responsibility has given to him, and more times than one. Okay, so here's what his commitment to responsibility has done for him. He has a hard time holding on to a job. We know that. He's had bumpy relationships with his girlfriends. He's had cash problems. He has been maligned in the newspaper and media. Thank you, Jonah Jameson, for that. He has suffered great grief. He lost, like I said before, Uncle Ben, but he also lost a girlfriend named Gwen Stacy in a fight with the Green Goblin, who actually killed her. So that's huge, right there. If he didn't have the powers, nothing would have. That would never have entered his life, right? So he has had those he cares about greatly put in danger more times than he can remember. He has had many sleepless nights, and he's had more bumps, cuts, and bruises than he cares to remember as well. So we're talking about a very, very self-sacrificial individual. His duty that he self-imposes, great responsibility that he chose to embrace, has caused him many, many problems, whether in his schooling, in his job, in his girlfriends, his relationships. The people he loves have been put in danger by crazy villains. He has had a lot to suffer, and yet, in spite of all of this, he never gave up. He came close. I mean, we remember in Spider-Man 2 where he just took off the suit and put it in the trash, and he was just, I quit, it's too much for me. But that's what I like about Spidey, is that he has had to suffer tremendously as a result of being a superhero, as a result of ultimately being a leader. Because when you are a leader, basically what you do is you take your gift and you put it on the line for other people. And that's exactly what he did with the gift of his powers, okay? That's what he uses every day, the gift of his powers, to help other people. And he's done it to the extent where it's really been detrimental to his life in all aspects. So I've heard many times, Spider-Man, I don't know if he's a leader, he's too immature, he's too young, he doesn't have good results. If you look at his personal life, it's not really, really good. And I understand all that, but we have to look, leadership is not just about results. Obviously, results are huge, okay? Results are the thing you look at to determine if a leader is good or not. In, I would say, over 95% of the time. But there is always an exception, okay? So, we'll look at that a little bit later, but something I want to mention, Spider-Man doesn't even consider himself a leader. I've seen it many times in the cartoons or in the comics. When he was put in the role where he had to lead a team, he felt very, very uncomfortable with that position. He always prefers to work alone, and it's not because he's antisocial, it's not because he's not a people person, because he loves people. I think Spidey doesn't want to do it because he feels inadequate. And the reason he feels inadequate is he looks at his results, he looks at his life, and he doesn't see those results or what his life is like as, hey, I'm a great leader, I can do this. And yet when you look at Peter Parker, at Spider-Man, if you look at his heart, if you look at what he actually can do, he's an extremely capable young man, an extremely capable leader, okay? Every day, Peter Parker leads himself. Rain or shine, pain or not, he always swings into action no matter the cost. That right there, that self-sacrificing mentality is right there. It's huge in leadership, okay? So he always decides, he always makes the decision every day to fight for something that's bigger than him. So that tells me a lot about the type of leader Spider-Man is. In spite of his insecurities about himself, in spite of how we look at his, basically his results in the comics, he's still a great leader. So, and he says it himself. Peter Parker has said it himself in the comics and on TV. He said once, he said, the powers that I got from the spider, I'm not sure if they're a gift or a curse. Because on most days, he felt like they were a curse. And remember, Stan Lee wanted a superhero with problems. That's exactly what he delivered, and that's what we got. And we love him for it. I mean, we love Spider-Man because we're like, this guy's like me. He's got subpar results in certain areas of his life, and we look at him and we love him for it because, let's face it, Superman is just like too much. I mean, he's like a demigod, Same with Thor and with a bunch of others. But Spider-Man is so relatable because we've all had those bad days, those bad moments, those subpar results in our own lives. So we love Peter Parker. We love Spider-Man as a result. So I'm arguing here that Spider-Man's a great leader. And you're probably still not convinced, and I don't blame you because it's true. If we look at his results, it's not great. But, and here's my argument, it's coming. Here's the points that I jotted down why Spidey is a very, very good leader. First of all, Spider-Man is competent. He's very good at what he does. His gift is the spider powers. And when he uses his gift, my goodness, I mean, he beats any supervillain. He goes into battle, even those who are more of a powerhouse or stronger, or he just finds a way to win every time when he goes out to face those villains, okay? That's the first thing. He's extremely competent. Second, Spidey does what is right even if he doesn't get the credit or even if it puts him in grave danger. So he always does what is right no matter the cost. So that's another great thing about Spider-Man and what makes him a good leader. Thirdly, he always puts the needs of others ahead of his own. Okay, that's where the self-sacrificial servant leader comes in. That's what a self-sacrificial servant leader does. They put the needs of other people ahead of their own needs. And nobody does it better, in my book, than Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. And lastly, but not least, he always does his best. It doesn't matter what Spidey does, what Peter Parker undertakes, he always gives it his 100% effort. Okay, he always does his best. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, okay? If your leader or your boss had those traits, okay, which is not, most of us are not, if we're employed or if we're following a leader, most of us are not lucky enough to have someone who has those traits. But if he does, if he or she does have those traits, don't you think they're a great leader? Even if sometimes their results might not necessarily reflect it. I mean, most of the times, leaders who do have these traits have great results. That's most of the time, and you can't argue that. I mean, someone who does have these traits will inevitably, normally, in a general sense, have good results. It's not the case with Spider-Man, and that's why I like him. That's why I like talking about him in the book. So, subpar results don't necessarily reflect the capacity of a leader. Although, and this is important here, in 95% and more, they do reflect the capacity of the leader. So that is something I really want to emphasize here. I'm not saying that as a general rule, the results will reflect the capacity of the leader. But sometimes you have certain individuals, like Peter Parker, who have subpar results, but who are still great leaders. And I like what the Bible says, and I'm going to quote the scriptures here. Don't feel annoyed. I'm going to quote the scriptures here because there's a passage in Ecclesiastes that says it very, very well. It's King Solomon, who was called many times the wisest man of all time. Here's what he had to say in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 11. It says this, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to men of understanding, nor favor to men of skill. But time and chance happen to them all. So what is Solomon saying here? Basically, he's saying that it's not always going to go, the results, the great results are not always going to go to those who deserve them, to those who work hard for them. There are minute exceptions. Okay, so basically Solomon is endorsing me. Just kidding, just kidding. I'm actually using that verse to endorse this, just to tell you about this teaching. So that, I love that verse, by the way, because it does, we live in a world where generalities don't always apply. Okay, when you're going to state something, and we in personal growth and personal development, we hear it all the time, and it's perfect. It's a true teaching. If you become better, your life will become better. If you learn more, if you acquire more knowledge, you will get a better job. That's a generality, but it's not always the case, and that's why I like the Spider-Man leader. That's why I inserted him in there, and especially for his servant leadership qualities. And I'll talk about a little bit more about servant leadership. So, like I said, for those of us who are in personal development, we hear it all the time, but there are those minute exceptions. So, servant leadership, okay, is something that I personally had a hard time to understand a concept. Of course, as a Christian, I was taught that very early. Jesus says it in the scriptures that we should, if you want to be great, well, we have to become the servant of all, and that is very true. That's what the concept of servant leadership comes from. It's actually a scriptural concept. Most people don't know that because it's used all throughout the greatest leadership seminars and teachings and teachers out there, and yet it comes from the scriptures. So most people don't know that. So when I was a young leader in my church, I was around 22, 23 years old. I was being groomed for the ministry. And I had a lot of things to learn. Why? Because I didn't come from the background that actually is favorable to someone being groomed for ministry. I came from a broken home. I had very, very little confidence in myself. And I had a lot of lacks, okay? There was a lot of things lacking in my character, lacking in my knowledge, lacking in my maturity, lacking in my emotional makeup. So I didn't quite understand when my mentors at the time emphasized time and again the importance of being a servant leader. I mean, I understood it on a surface level. You know, I got it. I read the verses that applied to that, but I didn't see the full importance of that and to just how far it needed to be manifested in my life in order to lead. And here's the funny part. I didn't want to lead. That was not something that was part of my aspirations. At the time, I wanted to meet a wife more than I wanted to lead. That was my my ambition. I wanted to get married. That was the one thing I was looking for. But at the same time, they saw some great potential in me, and they wanted to groom me, and they had a lot of work to do. I can tell you that for them today. When I think back on those days, I'm like, oh my goodness, and I got upset with them sometimes, and yet. They knew so much more than I did about leadership, and they tried to instill those principles in me, but I was so young and so immature, and I had a lot of lacks in my life that I just didn't quite grasp it. And if ever René Fré listens to this, and André Rousseau and all the others, the Église Baptiste Évangélique de Rosemont, you have my apology for not being more teachable. And being perhaps even a little bit cocky at times. Anyway, enough with that. That's a funny story. When you look back, you know, when you learn more, you mature, you grow in life, you realize where you just weren't quite adequate, and you look back and you're like, wow, they had quite a handful with me trying to teach me leadership, and they saw these qualities in me, and they wanted me to grow in my leadership. They wanted me to play a bigger role in the church. And I shirked away from that because I saw the responsibility of it. I was not immature to the point where I didn't see the responsibility of it. I was actually, my eyes were quite opened, and I understood and felt many, many times that I was inadequate. Okay? And that's just part of my story. I'm sharing that with you guys today so that you understand a little bit more where I come from. And where the Spider-Man leaders, such as myself, I'm not 100% a Spider-Man leader because, like I said in another live, I don't remember when, we all have different combinations from different leadership types. But the one that I do identify the most with is the Spider-Man leader, okay? Anyway, so, and they were always telling me, it's not about you, Sebastian. Okay, and they would tell me in a very gentle way, get over yourself or leave your ego at the door. I was not egotistical by any means, but I still had things to learn. I mean, I still had to understand what servant leadership entailed, and it was a process for me. And it's a process for anybody who enters leadership or who wants to learn about leadership. And I'm going to tell you this right now to all those of you listening. Servant leadership is the one thing that you need to master in order for all the others to work. If you don't have that one thing down, it doesn't matter how great you become in all the others. If you're bad, if you are full of ego, if you are not there to serve your gift to other people with class, with dignity, with love, with respect, with care, with wanting to better other people's lives, you have not understood at all what leadership entails. So that's the first thing. And that's the first thing you need to understand about leadership. It's not self-serving, okay? But it's all about serving others. Okay, so I said that. Serve others with your talents, your gifts, your abilities. Obviously, you don't try to serve in an area where you're weak. You have to serve people in the area where you are strong, because that's what they will benefit from. In the area where you're gifted, in the area where you are capable. So serve them your gift, serve them your talents, your abilities, and you will improve their lives. You will serve a greater purpose. You will enable others to rise to a higher level by doing that. And also empowering others is also part of that. By serving your gift, you're empowering them because you're adding to their value, okay? Okay, so finally, I'm going to finish with this. With great power comes great responsibility. And that sums up servant leadership. So if you show responsibility with what God has given you as a leader, okay? If you take what He's given you, your talents, your abilities, and you lead that gift into giving it to others, if you show yourself responsible into giving that away, okay, you will be given more. So if you can master the skill of being a servant-hearted leader, you will be given more responsibility by God, by the people around you, because they will be treated with care, with respect. They will be getting value from you. You will make yourself valuable by serving other people. And when you become valuable, you attract people. People will flock to you. They'll say, this is a valuable person because he adds value to others, because he's willing to serve others. So that's the final message of Spider-Man and me. And I hope you guys gained a lot of value from today's live. I will urge you one last time, if you haven't done so already, join my Facebook group. Just go to Facebook/groups/lead like a superhero. I will add you to the group. If this video has added value to you, share it with your friends. It's always fun to hear about superheroes, but it's always good to hear about how to become a better leader, because everything in our society rises and falls on leadership. And when I say everything, it's everything. Your life will rise and fall on leadership. Your marriage will rise and fall on leadership. Your children will rise and fall on your leadership. Your schools, your community, your churches, your workplace environment, your organizations will rise and fall on leadership. So this is just how important leadership is. And what is I would say the foundation of strong leadership is servant leadership. So I hope and pray that you will work on yourself to become a better servant leader. And I wish you a super leader Saturday. And I'm not sure, by the way, I'm not sure if I'm going to be on live next week for Saturday again, because I have the book launch coming in 10 days. It's coming in 10 days and I'm really excited, but also I'm swamped with work. There's so much I want to prepare to make that day special. So I'm not sure if I'll be there next Saturday. at this point. I might not, but whatever the case, on Thursday, not Thursday, it's Tuesday, May 16th, I will be live probably twice during the day for the book launch, and I'm going to be doing some giveaways and I'm going to add some good content. I'm going to add value to you guys, so jump on live on May 16th. I'm going to advertise it on Facebook. I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to give some good value to you guys on May 16th to talk about the book, to tell people it's available, to tell people it's out there if they want to buy it for themselves or buy it for friends and family. It's a really good book that really can help build people up in becoming better leaders. So God bless you. Have a wonderful day. See you next time. Bye-bye.
They say that a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stand